Hi, my name is Marcos, and today we are going to spread the word of the Lord. Isaiah 43 verse 2, KJV. There are moments in life when the soul feels it is walking through deep water, a quiet drowning beneath the surface of the everyday. You smile through the waves. You speak through the current, but inwardly you are wading through something no one sees. It may not show on your face, but you feel it in your chest. That heaviness, that quiet ache that doesn't quite have a name. And still, even there, in the hidden depths of your heart, God is present. He is not far off. He is not unaware. He is not delayed in His mercy. He is near to the broken currents. He stands beside the overwhelmed soul. You may feel like you are barely keeping your head above water, but heaven is holding you beneath it all. You are not forgotten in the undertow. Even the waves obey His voice. Even the stormy waters know the sound of His footsteps. For He who spoke peace over the sea in days of old still speaks peace over you now. His whisper is louder than the waves. His hand is stronger than the tide. You do not walk through these deep places alone. There is a holy presence beside you, gentle, constant, unseen but undeniably real. And if you could see the Spirit moving beside you, if you could see the angels walking with you, if you could hear the eternal voice speaking peace over your heart, you would know that you are carried even now. He has not abandoned you to the waters. He has appointed them to pass over you, but never to take you under. This is not your end. This is not your defeat. This is a passage, a crossing, a sacred in-between. And on the other side of it, there is something holy waiting. Something beautiful, something strong, something only the waters could prepare you for. You are being shaped. You are being softened. You are being strengthened beneath the surface. There is purpose in the passage. There is glory on the other side. And He who promised to be with you through the water will be the same one waiting with arms open on the shore. You are not lost. You are not unseen. You are not forgotten. You are simply being led through the deep, so you can stand stronger on the other side. The rivers may rise, but they do not rise higher than His hand. The winds may howl, but they cannot silence the voice that speaks peace. The shadows may lengthen, but they cannot drown the light He places within your soul. God does not promise you a life without waves, but He does promise that they will not overcome you, not because you are strong, but because He is. Not because you are unshaken, but because He is your anchor. Not because you know the way, but because He walks beside you through every unknown path. And oh, what comfort that brings, to know that the one who holds eternity is the same one holding your today. You may feel weary in the waiting. You may feel tired from the trial. But His presence remains constant. His nearness is not a flicker. It is a flame that never fades. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be fearless. You only need to remember this. He is with you. In the stillness of the night, when your thoughts feel like waves crashing against your peace, He is there, whispering calm into your soul. In the moments where tears fall quietly on your pillow, He is gathering every drop, turning sorrow into strength, pain into purpose, burden into blessing. He sees the silent prayers. He hears the sighs too deep for words. He understands the ache you cannot explain. And He walks with you still, not rushing you, not pushing you forward, but gently, patiently, lovingly walking with you, step by step. You do not need to sprint through this valley. You are allowed to move slowly. You are allowed to breathe deeply. You are allowed to rest in His arms as He leads you through. This journey is not about proving your strength. It is about discovering His. And He, the God who never slumbers, never turns His face away. Even now, He is watching over you. Even now, His presence surrounds you. Even now, though you walk through waters, you are never out of His reach. Let your heart rest in that truth. Let your soul breathe in that peace. Let the tides come. They will rise, but they will not claim you. Because you are held. Because you are chosen. Because you are loved beyond measure. This path is not pointless. This season is not wasted. He is with you, through it all, in it all, over it all. There is something sacred in the passing through. Something holy in the places that feel heavy. Something deeply tender in the quiet assurance that God is not watching from a distance, but walking in the midst. You are not forgotten in the flood. You are not abandoned in the fire. You are not overlooked in the wilderness. You are accompanied. Even the trials that burn with intensity, even the moments that feel like they may undo you, they do not have the final word. The flame may flicker, but it shall not consume. Because you walk with the one whose voice split the seas. You walk with the one who called fire from heaven, yet keeps you safe in the shelter of his hand. His promise is not just that you'll survive. It's that he'll be with you in every breath of it. There is a grace that flows in the valley. There is a peace that sings even under storm clouds. There is a strength that rises, not from striving, but from surrender. You do not need to carry the weight of tomorrow. You do not need to plan every step ahead. You only need to keep your eyes on the one who never loses his way. He is not startled by your weakness. He is not surprised by your tears. He welcomes them. He holds you, like a shepherd who knows every hill, every hollow, every darkened path. He walks beside you through it all. And as you pass through the waters, there is something else happening. You are being refined, not ruined. You are being shaped, not shattered. You are being drawn nearer to the heart of the one who loves you endlessly. Even when you feel like you're standing in the middle of chaos, he sees you as held in perfect peace. Even when the current feels strong, he is the rock beneath your feet. And he has never once let go. Not in your sorrow. Not in your uncertainty. Not in your lowest hour. Even now, as your heart beats slow in the quiet night, as your soul searches for stillness, he is near. Breathe deep. Rest long. You are not alone. You never have been. And you never will be. The waters may rise. The flames may flicker. But the promise stands eternal. I will be with thee. Let that be the song that sings you into rest. Let that be the whisper that carries you through the dark. Let that be the anchor of your heart tonight. Because he has spoken, and what he speaks does not return void. You are not merely passing through. You are being carried, and he who carries you will never let you fall. Psalm 121 verses 1-4, KJV. In the stillness of the night, when shadows stretch long across your thoughts, and questions echo softly through the corridors of your heart, there is a shepherd watching, not from afar, not hidden behind some distant veil, but near, closer than breath, gentler than the wind that rustles through the trees outside your window. When the world sleeps, he does not. When silence fills the room, he listens still. When every lamp is dimmed and every door closed for rest, the keeper of your soul remains awake. He does not slumber. He does not sleep. He watches over you with eyes full of love, with hands that never grow weary, with a heart that never turns away. Even now, as your body finds rest beneath the covers, as your mind slows in the hush of evening, he remains, not simply as a distant guardian, but as the one who holds your very life in his care. Lift your eyes, beloved. Lift them beyond what you see, beyond the questions that linger, beyond the fatigue of your journey. Your help comes from the Lord, not from the strength of your own hands, not from fleeting comforts, but from the Maker of heaven and earth. He knows every rise and fall of your breath. He knows the burdens you carry even in silence. He sees what others cannot see, the weight behind your smile, the ache beneath your strength. And still he stays. Still he keeps you. He will not allow your foot to slip. Not because the path is always easy, but because he is ever steady beside you. Even when you feel unsure of your steps, even when you falter in your own strength, he steadies you. He hems you in behind and before. He watches every step, every turn, every pause. And not one moment of your life escapes his gaze. Not one night passes unnoticed. Not one sigh is missed. Not one tear falls uncollected. You are not forgotten. You are not unseen. You are not walking alone. For the shepherd who watches through the night watches over you now. So rest, dear soul. Let your eyelids grow heavy in peace. Let your heart be quieted by this holy assurance. He that keepeth you shall neither slumber nor sleep. Even when dreams come and go, even when the night feels long, his presence remains constant. A refuge, a shield, a gentle whisper in the stillness that says, I am here. And in his presence, you are safe. You are sheltered. You are held. Psalm 121 verses 5-7, KJV. There is a quiet strength surrounding you now, an invisible covering, a divine shade upon your right hand. You do not walk this life unguarded. You do not stand exposed to the weight of this world's burdens alone. For the Lord is your keeper, not merely in the great crises, but in the small unseen moments, in the mundane hours, in the soft silence of the night, when your heart is most vulnerable and your soul most tender. Even now, as you lie still beneath the blanket of the evening, there is a heavenly shelter resting upon you, a shade to cool your fears, a shield to hush your anxious thoughts. The sun shall not smite you by day, not the weariness of daily toil, not the heat of pressing demands, not the scorching winds of worry, and the moon shall not harm you by night, not the shadows of doubt, not the creeping fear of the unknown, not the quiet ache of loneliness that tries to whisper its lies in the dark. The Lord watches over you in every hour, in the brightness and in the hush, in motion and in stillness, in your rising and your resting. You are preserved, beloved, preserved not by accident, but by covenant, not by coincidence, but by grace. He surrounds you with his faithfulness like a wall of fire. He walks before you, behind you, beside you. He knows you're going out and you're coming in. He tends your soul with gentle care, as a shepherd watches his sheep through the dark hours of night. Even when you feel uncertain, even when sleep evades you, even when questions echo in the silent corridors of your heart, he is still there, whispering peace, breathing comfort, blanketing your spirit with calm assurance. There is nothing too small for his care, no part of your heart too hidden for his attention, no fear too quiet for him to notice. He is keeper of your soul, and he does not rest from his keeping. You are not overlooked. You are not merely one among many. You are seen, deeply, personally, intimately seen. You are preserved in his love. So release the tension in your shoulders. Let your breath settle softly. Feel the gentle hush of his nearness wrapping around you like a warm covering. The shepherd is near, watching, guarding, keeping. Let your soul rest in the shelter of his promise. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. You are safe beneath his watchful eye. You are secure under his shade. You are kept in the arms of everlasting love. And nothing, no darkness, no fear, no whisper of harm, can remove you from his care. Psalm 121 verse 8, KJV. Even as the night stretches gently across the sky, even as your eyes grow heavy and the world grows quiet, the promise remains. The Lord shall preserve your going out, and your coming in, from this time forth, and even for evermore. This is not just a fleeting comfort, not just a momentary assurance to cradle you through one restless evening. It is a forever promise, an eternal word spoken by the Eternal One. From your first breath to your last sigh, in your every journey and return, he is your keeper. Every step you have ever taken, every path you have walked in joy or sorrow, has been known to him, and even the roads you have yet to travel. He already stands at the end, ready to meet you with grace. There is no journey beyond his care, no threshold you cross where he does not walk beside you, no new season, no unfamiliar road, where his preserving hand does not guide your way. He is God of your beginnings, God of your return, God of your every sunrise and sunset. When you walk into unfamiliar places, he goes with you. When you come home weary from life's demands, He greets you with peace. When you feel lost between places, He anchors you with His presence. From this time forth, and even for evermore. This is not a fragile promise. Not something that bends beneath pressure or crumbles under time. This is a keeping that reaches beyond the veil of days. A protection that does not end at nightfall. A love that does not expire when seasons change. This is a covering that will follow you from youth to old age. From this side of eternity into the next. He will not abandon you halfway through the journey. He will not leave you to wander alone in the in-between. He will not tire of watching over you. From this time forth, and even for evermore. Let your soul rest in this holy certainty. You are not walking unknown. You are not held for a moment and then forgotten. You are preserved continually, faithfully, lovingly. Even now, in the quiet hush of this hour, this promise breathes softly over your heart. A sacred lullaby for your spirit. You are kept. You are watched over. You are beloved in every season. You are carried in the heart of God. From the moment you awaken to the moment you lie down in rest. And beyond. So breathe in peace. Let your thoughts be still. Let your heart be hushed by the unchanging care of your shepherd. You are not drifting alone in this world. You are not vulnerable to the winds of life. You are guarded by the one who never slumbers. Preserved by the one whose love never fades. Kept forever by the keeper of your soul. And His promise remains. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even for evermore. Let your spirit rest now. Let the word cradle you into peace. Let the shepherd watch through the night. John 10 verse 28, KJV. There is a place so secure, a resting place so sacred, a shelter so strong, that nothing in heaven or earth can reach in to take you away. It is the hand of the Savior, gentle, yet mighty, tender, yet unbreakable, wounded for your redemption, yet victorious in power. And it is there, right there. You are held. Not loosely, not briefly, not conditionally, but firmly, forever, faithfully. You are not drifting through life unguarded. You are not vulnerable to the chaos around you. You are not dangling on the edge of hope, fearful of being forgotten. You are held in the hands of Christ. Hands that formed the stars, that healed the sick, that lifted the broken, and that bore the nails for your salvation. These hands hold you. You do not hold yourself. You are not sustained by your own strength. You are not carried by your own faithfulness. You are kept by Him. When your faith trembles, His grip does not loosen. When your heart questions, His hand does not waver. When your steps falter, He does not let go. You are held when you are strong, and you are held when you are weary. You are held when you rejoice, and you are held when you weep in silence. You are held in the storms, and you are held in the stillness. Nothing can separate you from His grasp. Not fear, not failure, not regret, not sorrow, not distance, not darkness, not death itself. His hand is the seal of eternity upon your life. And He whispers to your soul even now, you shall never perish. No one shall pluck you from my hand. Not the enemy, not the burdens of this world, not the mistakes of your past, not the trials that press against your peace. None can remove what He has claimed. None can steal what He has secured. None can undo what He has declared eternal. You are not just seen. You are chosen. You are not just loved. You are kept. You are not just safe. You are forever His. The shepherd holds his sheep, not with fleeting affection, but with unwavering devotion. He knows your name. He knows your journey. And He holds you with a grip that will not release you to the shadows. So let your spirit exhale now. Let your heart lean into this divine assurance. You are not in danger of slipping away unnoticed. You are not at the mercy of uncertainty. You are not on your own. You are in His hand. Even now, even here, in this quiet hour when the world grows still, you are safely held. Let the night pass in peace. For your soul is guarded by the one who never sleeps. You are not forgotten. You are not misplaced. You are not abandoned. You are held, fully, completely, eternally, in the hands of Christ. And nothing, nothing, can pluck you away. John 10 verse 28, KJV. There is something holy about being held, not just embraced in body, but enveloped in soul, held in stillness, held in comfort, held in love that does not let go. And when Christ says you are in His hand, it is not a passing metaphor. It is a promise carved into the heart of eternity. You are not suspended by chance. You are anchored by grace. You are not at the edge of being lost. You are at the center of divine security. Oh, how often we look to our surroundings for safety, to our own strength for stability, to circumstances for reassurance. But the hand of the Savior is where our true refuge rests. Think of the tenderness of His touch. The same hands that blessed children, that broke the bread and fed the multitude, that touched the eyes of the blind and brought light into their world. Those are the hands that cradle your soul now. And think of the strength of His hold. The same hands that calmed the storm, that carried the weight of the cross, that pushed aside the stone of the tomb in triumph. Those are the hands that carry you through every valley. You are not slipping through divine fingers. You are not one breath away from falling away. You are sealed. You are secure. You are wrapped in everlasting hands. The shepherd does not fumble. The Redeemer does not release. The Savior does not surrender what is His. Even when you feel faint, even when you cannot see the path ahead, even when prayers feel like whispers lost in the wind, still, He holds you. He holds you when your faith is small. He holds you when your strength is gone. He holds you when the night is long and the silence deep. And oh, how gently He holds you. Not with force, but with peace. Not with pressure, but with presence. His grip is steady, not suffocating. His touch is soft, not shaking. You are not clutched in fear. You are held in love. A love that laid down its life. A love that conquered death. A love that now holds you with the same hands that bear the scars of your salvation. And in those scars, your security lives. For every mark in His palm is a reminder. You are worth holding on to. You are worth keeping. You are worth redeeming. So rest now. Let the noise fade. Let the fear quiet. Let your heart be still. You don't need to grasp tightly. You only need to remember that you are already held. In Christ, you are not fighting for connection. You are living in union. In Christ, you are not reaching for acceptance. You are already known, already kept, already embraced. You don't need to worry if your grip weakens. His never does. You don't need to fear being lost in the dark. His hand lights your path. You don't need to be afraid of drifting. You are already anchored in Him. And no voice, no storm, no wound, no shadow can separate you from the hand of the one who calls you His own. So breathe deeply tonight, not because life is easy, but because love is unshakable. Sleep peacefully tonight, not because you have it all together, but because He holds it all in His hand. And He holds you too. There is no night so deep that His hand cannot reach you. No sorrow so heavy that His hand cannot lift you. No fear so sharp that His hand cannot calm you. For His hand is not only mighty, it is tender, not only sovereign, but near. This is the mystery of divine comfort, that the same hand that formed the heavens cups your face in gentleness, that the same hand that stretches over galaxies rests gently over your anxious heart. And in that hand you are known. You are not a number in the crowd. You are not one among many. You are not a whisper lost in the winds of eternity. You are held, individually, intentionally, intimately. His hold is not accidental. It is not conditional. It is not temporary. It is eternal. It is personal. It is unwavering. When you feel forgotten, remember the print of His hand is upon your life. When you feel small, Remember the same hand that lifts sparrows from the dust is the hand that lifts you when you stumble. When you feel distant, remember the shepherd never lets his sheep out of his reach. And oh, how faithful his reach is! Even when you drift, he draws near. Even when you fall, he lifts. Even when you break, he restores. The grip of grace is stronger than the pull of fear. And the shepherd doesn't just hold you close. He holds you through the waters, through the fire, through the shadowed valleys, through the days when strength feels like a memory. He does not drop you in weakness. He does not forsake you in failure. He does not let go in fatigue. He is the keeper of your soul, the defender of your life, the lover of your being. And when the world presses heavy upon you, you do not stand alone. You stand in the strength of the one whose hand broke the power of death itself. The hand that was pierced for your salvation is the same hand that protects you now. So do not be afraid of tomorrow. You are already in the hands of the one who holds time. Do not be crushed by what you cannot control. You are already in the hands of the one who holds all things together. Do not worry if the path is unclear. You are already in the hands of the one who guides your every step. And yes, life may shift. Storms may rise. Questions may echo. But his grip never loosens. His hold never fails. His promise never fades. Even when your mind forgets, your spirit is still kept. Even when you can't feel it, you are still in his hand. So tonight, release the weight. Let go of the striving. Set down the fear. You are not responsible for holding yourself together. You are already held by the one who holds the universe together. You don't have to cling to your peace. You only have to trust the hand that never lets go. This is where you can rest. This is where you can breathe. This is where your heart finds quiet. In the unfailing, everlasting, unshakable hand of Christ. So close your eyes, beloved soul. Not in fear, but in trust. You are safe. You are secure. You are seen. And above all, you are held. Thou God sayest me, Genesis 16 verse 13, KJV. In the quiet places where no one sees. In the weary corners of your heart where words cannot reach. In the hollow chambers of sorrow that echo without answer. He sees you. You are not hidden. You are not forgotten. You are not lost in the crowd of humanity. El Roi, the God who sees. He saw Hagar in the wilderness. A servant girl, dismissed, wandering, carrying burdens too heavy for one heart. Alone by a spring of water. Yet heaven's gaze found her. No prophet's mantle wrapped her. No grand altar marked her place. But still, God came near. And so it is with you. Not one tear slips unseen. Not one sigh escapes unnoticed. Not one restless night is overlooked by the keeper of your soul. He sees the battle behind your smile. He sees the questions buried beneath your silence. He sees the ache that no one else understands. And he does not turn away. He kneels near, in the desert places. He draws close, not when you are strong, but when you are spent. He finds you, not when the path is clear, but when you are lost in the wilderness. You do not have to earn his gaze. You do not have to perform for his presence. You do not have to shout to be heard. For he sees what others overlook. He cherishes what the world discards. He honors the lowly and treasures the broken. His eye is upon you, not with condemnation, but compassion. Not with cold observation, but with divine affection. And he calls your name. Not as the world defines you. Not by your failures, your past, or your pain. But by the tender name he speaks in love, my child, my beloved, my own. You are not merely seen. You are known. Deeply, thoroughly, tenderly. He sees the dreams you hold quietly in your heart. He sees the prayers you've whispered in the night. He sees the steps you take when no one applauds. And he is moved. Your journey matters to him. Your tears are gathered in his bottle. Your story is written upon his heart. You may feel small, but to him you are precious. You may feel invisible, but to him you are radiant. You may feel overlooked, but to Him, you are chosen. So rest tonight in this truth. You are not walking unnoticed. You are not crying unheard. You are not stumbling unseen. The same God who saw Hagar in the wilderness sees you now, right where you are. In your silence, He hears. In your stillness, He draws near. In your sorrow, He stays close. And in your searching, He answers with His presence. So let your heart breathe. Let your soul rest. Let your spirit settle into the comfort of being seen, not vaguely, but intimately. The eyes of heaven are upon you with love, and that love will not turn away. And still He sees, even in the shadows you cannot explain, even in the detours you never planned, even in the ache that lingers quietly beneath your breath. El Roi, the God who sees, watches with tender clarity. He saw Hagar's trembling hands. He saw her confusion, her fear, her anguish beneath the open sky. And He did not wait for her to come closer. He came to her, in the desert, in her despair, in her aloneness. And He speaks the same today. He comes to you not only in sanctuaries but in sorrow, not only in triumph but in tears, not only in praise but in pain. He sees what others pass by. That silent moment when your soul feels invisible. That weary sigh you give when no one notices. That heaviness you carry quietly because you don't want to burden others. He sees it all. And He does not grow weary of you. He is not like man, distracted, hurried, shallow in attention. His gaze is not fleeting. His care is not partial. His love is not based on your performance. He sees the child behind the strength you try to show. He sees the soul beneath the responsibilities you shoulder. He sees the longing for comfort that you dare not speak aloud. And He leans in, not with shame, but with sacred stillness. Not with judgment, but with divine gentleness. He draws near to your humanity. He honors your frailty. He walks with you through every unknown. He remembers every moment you thought no one noticed. He saw Hagar, not merely as a servant, not as an outcast, not as a mistake. He saw her as worthy of a divine visitation. So too, He sees you as worthy of His nearness, not because you have done everything right, but because His love never needed you to. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not invisible in the kingdom of God. Even if you wander far, even if you collapse beneath the weight, even if you feel like a name lost in a sea of others, still He sees you. He numbers the hairs on your head. He knows your rising and your resting. He has counted every tear that has fallen from your eyes. And nothing escapes Him. Your pain is not too small for His notice. Your fears are not too quiet for His comfort. Your story is not too broken for His redemption. He sees, and He stays. He does not retreat when you are weary. He does not recoil when you are weak. He does not withdraw when you are struggling. He is the God who sees, and He is the God who remains. So tonight, in the hush of this moment, breathe in the peace of being seen. You do not have to explain yourself to Him. You do not have to hide your ache. You do not have to carry your burdens alone. He is with you, seeing, caring, holding you quietly in the stillness. This is the God who watches not from afar, but who stoops near, who gathers, who whispers your name with holy affection. And He will not let you go unseen. He sees you, still, in every chapter, in every season, in every silence you cannot explain. He sees you through the veil of tears, through the tangled paths you never meant to walk, through the questions you ask in the quiet corners of your heart. The God who saw Hagar in the wilderness still watches over you in your wilderness. Nothing in your life is too hidden for Him. Not the heartache you've buried under your smile. Not the dreams you've quietly let slip through your fingers. Not the prayers you once whispered and now barely dare to hope again. He sees them all. And He weaves His love into each moment with gentle precision. Even when you feel forgotten by others. Even when the world rushes past you. Even when the silence feels loud and the night feels long. El Roi is still near. He marks every footstep you take. He knows the story behind every sigh. He understands the weight behind your weariness. You are never just a face in the crowd to him. You are never just a name in a long list of needs. You are his beloved, his seen, his held. The God who met a wounded woman beside a well still meets wounded hearts today. And when he comes, he brings more than comfort. He brings restoration. He does not merely observe. He intervenes. He does not just watch from a distance. He draws close with healing in his hands. He binds the unseen bruises. He speaks peace into the places that ache. He wraps his arms around the loneliness you thought no one noticed. And oh, how tender his gaze is. He sees the child in you, the one who still longs to be held, to be known, to be chosen. He sees the strength you've shown, the battles you've fought, the resilience you've carried. But he also sees the moments you wish someone would see behind your strength, into the softness of your soul. And he does. He sees the little faith that still clings. He sees the candle of hope that still flickers. He sees the heart that still reaches upward, even in weariness. And he honors it. You don't need grand prayers to catch his attention. You don't need perfect words to be heard. You don't need to perform for his affection. You only need to rest in this truth. He sees you. Fully. Tenderly. Faithfully. And he will never look away. So let your soul exhale in this moment. You are not invisible. You are not overlooked. You are not forgotten. You are seen. You are known. You are loved. And he walks with you still, through every shadow, through every sigh, through every sacred step. Even now, even here, you are held in the gaze of the God who sees. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Psalm 23 verse 5, KJV. There is a table, spread not in the absence of trouble, but in the very presence of it. Not in a garden of ease, but in the valley of shadows. Not after the battle has passed, but while it yet rages around you. This is the mystery of his love. This is the wonder of his presence. This is the shepherd's care that turns wilderness into sanctuary and chaos into communion. You, beloved soul, you are invited to sit, not to strive, not to war, not to fear, but to rest in the presence of your shepherd. Even as the arrows fly, even as voices rise, even as darkness tries to press in, there is a table he prepares. A table of stillness, of nourishment, of divine reassurance. And it is not hurried. It is not fragile. It is not shaken by the noise that surrounds. He anoints your head with oil, a symbol of his favor, a seal of his covering, a fragrance of heaven resting upon your brow, even as the world would try to wear you down. And your cup, it runs over, because his provision is not meager, it is abundant. Because his love does not ration, it overflows. Because his grace is not barely enough, it is more than sufficient. In this sacred moment, your enemies may still encircle. The storms may still rise. But they cannot touch the peace he spreads before you. This table is not for them, it is for you. It is his declaration. You are mine. You are protected. You are sustained. What battle could steal your peace when your shepherd is near? What threat could shake your soul when his presence fills your cup? Here, in the hush of holy stillness, he feeds your soul. Bread of comfort, wine of joy, oil of healing. And all the while, your heart learns again that he is enough. This is not the table of fear. It is the table of trust. A table in the presence of conflict, yet untouched by it. A table of serenity that defies all logic. Because when God prepares the table, it is not the absence of enemies that matters, it is the presence of him. And where he is, there is peace. Where he is, there is rest. Where he is, there is no need to fear the night. So let your weary soul draw near. Take your seat again. Let the battle rage if it must, but let your heart be still. For the shepherd has spread the feast, and he himself is your portion. The flicker of candlelight dances gently across the table he has set before you. It is not an ordinary table. It is sacred, laid not only with provision, but with presence. Spread not only with bread, but with belonging. You do not sit as a guest merely passing through. You sit as one whom he loves, whom he knows by name. You sit not as a stranger, but as a child invited by the Father himself. Look again. See how carefully it's prepared. Every detail speaks of him. Every place setting whispers of his intentional love. Every cup, every plate, every fold of cloth tells the story of a shepherd who does not just protect, but delights to comfort. Even while the world around may hiss with opposition. Even while your soul may feel weary from the journey. Even while the echoes of discouragement try to find their way in. This table stands, untouched, immovable, because he prepared it. He did not wait for the absence of your trouble before inviting you to rest. He knew you would need nourishment in the midst of it. He knew the shadows would come, so he poured the wine of joy. He knew fear would try to whisper, so he anointed you with the oil of peace. He knew the battle would surround you, so he set your place, right in the middle of it. And still, he bids you sit. Still, he calls you to eat. Still, he reminds you, you are not forsaken. This is not merely a place of pause. It is a place of divine defiance. A declaration in the face of darkness that your soul shall not be overcome. Because even here, at this table, in this very place of pressure, he feeds you. And it is not crumbs you receive. It is the richness of heaven. Manna for your weariness. Mercy for your yesterday. Grace for your today. And strength for your tomorrow. Oh, soul, let the feast quiet your heart. Let the shepherd's care soften the weight of all that burdens you. Let his presence become your portion. Let his peace fill you deeper than fear ever could. Your enemies may still look on, but they cannot touch what he has placed before you. They cannot snatch the peace from your hands. They cannot drain the joy from your cup. Because this table was prepared by nail-scarred hands. And what he prepares, no foe can undo. Stay here a while. Let your soul be nourished again. There is no rush. There is no need to rise quickly. This is sacred ground. And he is near. He anoints your head with oil. Not because you have earned this honor. Not because you have striven long enough or fought hard enough. But because he calls you his own. The oil runs down not in haste, but in tenderness. A holy covering, a fragrant blessing, a sacred seal upon your weary brow. It is his declaration over you. You are chosen. You are protected. You are favored. This oil speaks of healing. It soothes where life has wounded. It seeps into the cracks where sorrow once tried to take root. It runs where no balm of man could ever reach. And still, he pours. It's not a single drop to ration. Not a reserved portion to preserve. It is a lavish anointing, overflowing with compassion, flowing with divine affection. He does not give sparingly. He does not bless with restraint. He anoints you, and your cup runs over. See how it overflows, grace spilling over the brim. Not just enough to survive, but more than enough to thrive. Not just enough to endure, but enough to sing, even in the valley. This is what your shepherd does. He does not merely provide. He multiplies. He does not only comfort. He floods your soul with joy inexpressible. Even in the presence of adversity, he fills your cup until it spills in streams of praise. Let your heart take rest here. Let your soul be bathed in this oil of mercy. Let the overpour of his love wash away every residue of fear, shame, or despair. You do not walk through this life barely making it. You walk with a cup that runs over. With a head anointed by the Most High. With a place at the table that cannot be removed. Even in sleepless nights, when thoughts press heavy. Even in silent battles, when no one sees your weariness. The shepherd is near. He sets the table. He anoints your head. He fills your cup. He sustains you with goodness that never runs dry. So sleep in peace tonight, child of God. The table remains. The oil still flows. And the cup, your cup, still runs over. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. Psalm 34 verse 18, KJV. He healeth the broken in heart, and bindeth up their wounds. Psalm 147 verse 3, KJV. There is a quiet tenderness in the heart of God, a gentleness that leans low to meet you in the places others cannot see. A nearness that does not rush your healing, but holds you while you ache. The Lord is close to the broken-hearted. Closer than breath. Closer than the sorrow you carry. Closer than the questions that rise in the silence of night. He does not withdraw from the weight of your grief. He does not retreat when your tears fall heavy. He draws near. Not with judgment. Not with impatience. But with mercy. With kindness. With healing in His wings. He sits beside you in your pain, not afraid of your sorrow, not weary of your ache. He knows what it means to be wounded, to be misunderstood, to be pressed beneath the weight of sorrow. He was the man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. He bore our wounds, carried our shame, took upon Himself the burden of all that breaks the human heart. And now, as you sit in the quiet moments of your own heartache, He sits with you. He gathers the shattered pieces. Not one fragment is overlooked, not one tear is dismissed. He sees what others do not. The nights you cry in silence. The prayers you whisper between sighs. The weary breaths that barely make it through the day. He sees it all. And still, He heals. He healeth the broken in heart. Not with haste, but with holy hands. Not with noise, but with presence. He binds up wounds, not merely to close them, but to restore what was lost beneath the pain. You are not forgotten in your brokenness. You are not invisible in your sorrow. You are held by the One who mends every soul that comes undone. He is not waiting for you to be whole before He draws near. He comes close now, while you are still hurting, still unsure, still trembling. And in His nearness, something begins to soften. A quiet strength stirs beneath the ache. A gentle light rises, even in the night. This is the sacred work of the healer. The heart God heals is not discarded, it is cherished. It is shaped, held, and restored with loving care. So breathe deep tonight. Let the pain be real, but let His comfort be deeper still. You are not alone in your healing. You are not forgotten in your breaking. You are seen, and you are being healed. Sometimes, healing does not come in a sudden moment. It comes softly, like morning light inching across the edge of a dark horizon. It comes quietly, like dew settling on grass while the world still sleeps. The heart God heals is not rushed. He does not push you forward faster than your soul can carry. He walks with you, step by sacred step, through every valley and tender place. The world may move too fast, but your shepherd does not. He takes His time with your heart. And while others may look at your wounds and grow uncomfortable, God looks at them with compassion. While some may tire of your process, He is patient in every moment of it. He is the one who knows how long your sorrow has lived beneath the surface. He is the one who understands the depth of your ache. And He is the one who will not abandon you to it. His healing is not only about removing pain. It is about restoring joy, piece by piece, until the light finds its way back into you. Some parts of your heart may feel quiet now, numb, even forgotten. But He knows how to awaken what's been buried. He knows how to breathe life into the places you thought would never feel again. When your spirit feels faint, He does not shame you, He lifts you. When your strength fails, He does not scold you, He carries you. Even when you have no words left to pray. Even when all you can do is rest your weary soul in His presence. That too is healing. For His nearness is not dependent on your strength. His love is not measured by your progress. His comfort is not limited by your ability to speak. He is simply near. And in that nearness, healing unfolds. Sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly, but always surely. You are not a project to Him. You are not a task to be fixed. You are a beloved child, tenderly restored by the hands that shaped you. And though the world may rush you, though timelines and pressures may surround you, God whispers, "Be still. I am healing you." So rest tonight. Rest in the knowledge that the healing you need is not beyond reach. It is already at work, because He is already near. The heart God heals is not forgotten, it is favored. It is watched over, tended, nurtured with holy compassion. Your tears are never wasted. Your pain is never unseen. Your healing is never too late. He is binding up your wounds even now. With grace. with mercy, with love that knows no end. There is something sacred about a heart that has walked through sorrow and still turns its gaze toward heaven. Something deeply precious about a soul that has been crushed under the weight of life, and yet still whispers, "God is near." This, beloved, is the mystery of grace, that even in brokenness, beauty rises. Even in mourning, comfort flows. When your heart has been shattered, God does not ask you to pretend it hasn't. He does not ask you to smile through the pain or rush past your ache. He simply comes and sits beside you. He gathers every splintered piece of your heart in His hands. Not to scold you for your frailty, but to show you His tenderness. He does not just want to mend what is broken. He desires to make it whole in a way that only divine love can. There is no part of your story too bruised for His mercy. No wound too deep for His healing touch. He sees the silent grief, the kind you carry quietly in the night, the kind no one else knows how to ask about. But He knows. He sees the questions you hold in the shadows of your soul. The whys you've whispered when no one was around. And even when no answer comes, He meets you with peace. Not the peace that comes from understanding, but the peace that comes from being held. He binds your wounds not only with comfort, but with purpose, with hope that grows again from the ashes. He teaches your heart that joy is not the absence of sorrow. It is the presence of God in the midst of it. There is healing in every moment you bring your pain to Him. There is restoration in every breath where you release your burdens into His care. You are not walking through this valley alone. You are not forgotten in the silence. You are not invisible in your sorrow. You are held by the One who was acquainted with grief, who bore your sorrows, who carries you now with the same strength that carried the cross. And in the stillness of this night, He is speaking gently to your soul. I am near. I am healing you. I will not leave you broken. So breathe deeply now. Let go of every heavy thought, and rest beneath His healing wings. Tomorrow will come, but tonight your soul is safe in the hands of the healer. Which hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast, and which entereth into that within the veil. Hebrews 6 verse 19, KJV. Hope. Such a simple word, and yet it holds the weight of eternity. Hope is not wishful thinking. It is not fragile optimism or fleeting emotion. It is not a distant dream whispered into the wind. It is an anchor, firm, unmoving, rooted beyond what eyes can see, steadfast even when the waves rise and the storms howl around your soul. There are seasons when the heart grows tired, when questions swirl like wind-tossed waters, and even faith feels faint. But even in those moments, hope holds. Even in the shaking, hope does not loosen its grip. Even when all else seems to drift, the anchor remains buried deep beneath the surface, holding fast to the unseen certainty of God's promise. The soul, though weary, finds its tether in Him. You may not always see the shore. You may not always feel the ground beneath your feet, but the anchor is still there. Christ, our anchor, not bound to the fragile circumstances of this world, but secured in the very presence of God. He does not promise you a life without storms, but He does promise you something greater, a hope that endures through every storm. This is not a hope that changes with the seasons. It is not a hope that depends on your strength, or your clarity, or your perfect faith. No, beloved, this is a hope rooted in the unchanging heart of God, a hope that reaches beyond the veil, a hope that cannot be shaken, because it is fastened to Him who never changes. When you feel lost at sea, when the winds of life howl and you wonder if you will make it through the night, remember this: you are held. You are tethered to something far deeper than your fear, far stronger than your sorrow, far greater than your circumstance. You are anchored in grace, even when your hands feel too weak to hold on. It is not your grip on God that saves you, but His grip on you, and He does not let go. So breathe now. Rest in this sacred truth. The anchor still holds. Let the winds rage. Let the waves rise. Let the world shake. You are not adrift. You are not alone. You are grounded in a hope eternal, a hope that whispers peace into the night. a hope that sings strength into your soul. And as the stars shine over the quiet waters, and your heart settles into this stillness, know this: the anchor of your soul is sure. The anchor of your soul is steadfast, and He is holding you even now. There is something holy about quiet waters, still moments, silent hours when the world falls asleep, and the soul can finally breathe again. It is in this hush of night that hope whispers most clearly, not in the thunder, not in the applause, but in the soft rhythm of grace moving gently beneath the surface of your life. The anchor does not make a sound. It simply holds. And sometimes that is all you need. Not a sign, not a miracle, not a sudden change. Just the quiet knowing that you are still held. Even in your silence, He listens. Even in your weariness, He watches. Even when your prayers feel empty, He is near. Hope is not loud. Hope is not demanding. Hope does not shout from the mountaintop. It sings in the valley. It hums a steady melody when your heart forgets the lyrics of peace. It cradles your spirit when all strength is gone. It reminds you that though the storm may swirl around you, there is a place of calm beneath it all, where the anchor still holds. You may have drifted far in your thoughts. You may have doubted. You may have feared. You may have wondered if you've lost your way completely. But hope is not lost. It was never rooted in your perfection. It was never dependent on your faithfulness. It was always rooted in His. The hope that holds you tonight was fastened long before your fears ever formed. It was secured not by your hands, but by His pierced hands. Hands that reached into death and came back with resurrection. That's where your anchor lies. In the inner sanctuary, beyond the veil. In the eternal place where Christ Himself stands on your behalf. He entered once for all, and your hope follows Him there. Your anchor does not lie in the shifting sands of life, but in the throne room of grace. So, dear soul, rest. Let the night carry you deeper into this peace. Let every breath be a gentle reminder. You are not drifting. You are not forgotten. You are not without hope. You are anchored to a promise that cannot fail. A covenant sealed with blood. A Savior who never sleeps, never leaves, and never falters. Your hope is not shallow. It is not temporary. It is not based on emotion. It is eternal, steady, holy. So even now, when the world is quiet and your thoughts begin to settle, let hope rise again in you. Not because everything is perfect, not because every answer is clear, but because Christ is still holding you. And His grip is steady. Let your soul be calmed by this. Let your heart be quieted in Him. Let every restless part of you be drawn deeper into this sacred truth. The anchor still holds. And it will hold until the morning breaks with mercy once again. There is something sacred about being still. Not doing, not striving, not reaching, but simply resting in the holy hush of His presence. This is where the anchor of hope reveals its greatest strength. Not in movement, but in stillness. Not in signs and wonders, but in quiet trust. When your soul is weary, when your heart is heavy with unanswered questions, when life feels like a sea that will not still, remember this: you are not adrift. You are held. Held by something deeper than emotion. Held by something stronger than fear. Held by something more lasting than this moment's pain. You are held by a hope that is not of this world. It does not rise and fall with the tide of circumstances. It does not loosen its grip when life feels fragile. It is not shaken by the weight of your worries. It is anchored behind the veil, in the holy place where Christ has gone before you, the place where mercy speaks louder than guilt, where grace is the final word, where love is not a passing feeling, but an eternal foundation. This hope, it does not vanish in the dark. It glows like a gentle flame, steadily, softly, guiding you home. And on nights like this, when the silence stretches long, and the shadows linger, let your heart remember what is unseen. Let your spirit lean upon what is eternal. Let your thoughts be gently gathered into His peace. You may feel tossed by the winds of worry. You may feel the waves of disappointment rise against your hope. But no storm can sever the anchor that holds you to Him. This hope is not wishful thinking. It is not fleeting optimism. It is not just a beautiful idea. It is a living promise. A promise that He will finish what He started. A promise that He will never let you go. A promise that even in the deepest waters, He is still your shore. So rest, beloved soul. Rest in the mystery of grace. Rest in the steadfast love of your God. Rest in the gentle truth that even in your weakness, you are held by strength. Let your worries unravel in His presence. Let your fears dissolve beneath His peace. Let your soul exhale into His quiet comfort. You do not need to have all the answers. You do not need to see the entire path. You only need to know this. The anchor still holds. In the unseen places, in the depths of your being, in the middle of your silent prayers, you are tethered to the heart of God, and He will not let you go. Even when the seas rise, even when the winds howl, even when you feel small and overwhelmed, the anchor holds, steady, sure, unmoving. So tonight, release it all into His hands. Let your heart lean back into the strength of this hope. Let your spirit rest in the quiet knowing that He is enough. And as sleep slowly finds you, may peace wrap around you like the arms of heaven. May your soul be anchored deep in the truth of His love. May every breath become a prayer of trust, and every moment of rest be a holy lullaby, whispering again and again, "You are safe. You are seen. You are loved. You are held." And the anchor still holds. Isaiah 49 verses 14 to 16, KJV. There are moments when silence feels like absence, when prayers seem to echo into nothingness, when days stretch long without answers, when the ache of waiting presses against the heart like a quiet sorrow. We whisper in the dark, "Has God forgotten me?" It is a tender cry, one that has passed through the lips of many before you. The cry of Zion, echoing still across generations. "The Lord hath forsaken me. My Lord hath forgotten me." But listen, beloved soul, to the answer from heaven's heart. Can a woman forget her nursing child? Even the tenderest love on earth can falter, but His love does not. He says, "Yeah, they may forget, yet will I not forget thee." You are not a passing thought to God. You are not an afterthought in His story. You are remembered in the deepest way, inscribed upon the very hands of the Eternal One. Your name, your life, your tears, your story, graven on the palms that formed galaxies, the same hands that stretched wide on Calvary. He does not forget you. He cannot forget you. It is not in His nature to forsake His own. The silence is not abandonment. The waiting is not rejection. The stillness is not a sign that He has turned away. You are known. You are seen. You are held in holy remembrance. Even now, your walls, your struggles, your longings, your prayers, they are continually before Him. Not occasionally, not momentarily, continually. There is no pause in His awareness of you. There is no break in His attention toward you. While you wonder if He still sees you, He is already working in ways unseen. While you ache for answers, He is writing a story deeper than your questions. He has not forgotten you in your pain. He has not lost sight of your tears. He has not overlooked the chapters of your life that feel barren or broken. No. He has carved your story into His own being. He carries your name with Him wherever He goes. And even when you cannot feel Him close, He is nearer than your breath. You may forget your worth, but He remembers. You may feel lost, but He has never lost sight of you. So take a breath in this quiet hour. Let the ache soften under His whisper. Let your fears be stilled by this truth. You are not forgotten. You are written into the rhythm of heaven. You are woven into the mercy of His plan. You are held in the memory of God, not as a burden, but as beloved. And when you lie down tonight, let that be your peace. Not that you understand everything, but that He sees everything. Not that you feel His presence in every moment, but that His presence never departs. He is the God who does not forget. He is the God who holds you in His hands. He is the God who never, ever lets you slip from His heart. Rest there now, You are not forgotten. Sometimes, it's not the loud storms that weary the soul, but the quiet spaces between. The waiting room of life. The long pauses when heaven seems silent, and your heart wonders if the story has stalled. You may be walking through such a moment now. A season of stillness, where prayers have been prayed, tears have been shed, and yet, the answer seems delayed. But even in the hush of unanswered prayers, even in the hush of silence, you are not forgotten. Let the word settle over your soul like a gentle lullaby. I have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. Not merely remembered, not simply acknowledged, but engraved, etched deep, marked permanently. Not a fleeting thought, but a permanent inscription upon the hands that never tire, upon the hands that shaped your beginning, and hold your destiny still. Can you picture it? The hand of God, so mighty and holy, bearing your name, your story, your journey, not scribbled lightly, but carved with eternal care. No earthly ink could express such permanence. No passing glance could hold such constancy. You are engraved, carried. You are not merely in his thoughts. You are in his hands. And his hands do not forget what they carry. His hands bore the cross. His hands touched the leper. His hands raised the dead. His hands calmed the sea. And his hands now hold you. So in the stillness, when your soul wonders if it's been overlooked, when it feels like the world moves forward and your life stands still, lift your eyes, gently, toward this truth. Your name is not lost in the crowd. Your pain is not buried beneath the noise of others. Your journey is not insignificant. You are not just another life among many. You are not just another face in the multitude. You are beloved, remembered, engraved. Your walls, your cares, your dreams, your burdens, are continually before him. They are not forgotten, not set aside. They are before him, not behind his back, not beneath his feet, not brushed away. Before him, always, constantly, tenderly. He watches over what concerns you. He guards what you cannot yet see. He prepares what you do not yet understand. And one day, perhaps not in this moment, but in the fullness of time, you will look back and see that not a second was wasted. Not a tear went unnoticed. Not a prayer slipped through unnoticed. Because you are not forgotten. The God of eternity, the author of time, the maker of your soul, has carved your story into his divine hands. And when you rest tonight, let your heart exhale. Let your worries fall softly to the ground. For you are not drifting in the unknown. You are not overlooked in the crowd of life. You are held. You are seen. You are known. You are loved. And you are not forgotten. There are moments in life when the soul aches for reassurance, when even faith whispers faintly, when the heart wonders if it's still seen in the vastness of eternity. But the Holy Spirit speaks softly in those places, not with thunder, not with earthquake, but with a still small voice. And that voice echoes, "I will not forget you." Such tender assurance flows from the throne of grace, not merely as comfort, but as divine certainty. There is nothing casual about God's remembrance of you. It is not like the way we remember a fleeting dream, or a passing face in a crowd. No, his remembrance is sacred, precise, unwavering. He remembers not only your name, but your story, your sighs, your hopes, your cries. He remembers the tears no one else saw, the long nights you endured in silence, the hidden sacrifices, the quiet obedience, each moment written in the eternal script, a story known and cherished by the author himself. You are not lost in a sea of prayers. Yours reaches his heart. You are not one of many. You are one deeply known. The world may overlook you. People may forget you. Even your own heart may grow weary of waiting. But the Lord your God has never, ever forgotten you. Let that truth be like oil upon your spirit, soothing, healing, restoring peace to your restless heart. Can you feel it now? The gentle embrace of that promise? The soft warmth of heaven's remembrance? The way it cradles you in the hush of the night? Perhaps you've walked through deserts, long seasons where answers didn't come, where doors remained closed, where heaven seemed quiet. And yet, in all those moments, God was not absent. He was working in silence, weaving purpose through the stillness, carving beauty through the waiting. Because even in delay, you are not forgotten. Even in sorrow, you are not abandoned. Even in uncertainty, you are still held by the hands that carry your name. And oh, how those hands are strong! They do not tremble under the weight of your needs. They do not grow weary of carrying you. Those hands that calmed storms and multiplied loaves are the same hands that cradle your heart tonight. Those hands that stretched wide upon the cross are the hands that never let you go. You are graven, engraved deeper than mere memory, engraved beyond the reach of time, engraved into the divine tenderness of God Himself. He doesn't need to be reminded to care for you. You are always before Him. Your walls, your world, your life, your joys and your wounds, they are continually before His eyes. He sees the cracks you try to hide. He sees the burdens you carry silently, and He does not look away. He stays with you. He walks with you. He weeps when you weep, and rejoices over you with singing. So tonight, in the softness of this moment, breathe again. Let your spirit be comforted. Let your heart be still. You do not need to strive to be remembered. You already are. You do not need to fight to be seen. You already are. You do not need to prove your worth. You already are beloved. The heavens declare His glory, but your life declares His care. Your presence here is not by accident. Your breath is not unnoticed. Your existence is divine intention. So rest, beloved soul. You are not forgotten. Not now. Not ever. You are carried, watched over, held in everlasting arms. He hears you. Before a word escapes your lips, He knows it altogether. Before a sigh reaches the heavens, He has already leaned close. Before the prayer has formed fully in your heart, He is already listening. You are not a stranger in the presence of God. You are not lost in a sea of voices. You are known. You are heard. You are welcomed. When you call upon Him, He does not turn away. When you kneel in the stillness, even if your words are few, even if your voice is shaky, He receives it like a precious offering. The God who created galaxies inclines His ear toward your quiet cry. And He hearkens, not with indifference, not with delay, but with tender attention. He hearkens with the care of a shepherd, with the heart of a father, with the compassion of the one who has always loved you first. There is no such thing as a wasted prayer in the kingdom of heaven. There is no such thing as unnoticed tears or unheard whispers. Every time you reach for Him in trust, you are met with divine faithfulness. Every time you bow your heart in prayer, He surrounds you with His nearness. And even when it seems He is silent, even when no immediate answer arrives, even when the outcome looks unchanged, do not doubt that He is working beneath the surface. Some answers come quickly. Some arrive softly over time. Some unfold in ways we never imagined. But always, always He hears. And He honors every sincere prayer with perfect response. Not always the response we expect, but always the one we need most. When you walk with Him in prayer, you're not merely reciting requests. You're entering sacred conversation. You're drawing near to the heart of God. You're exchanging your burdens for His peace. There is strength in prayer that cannot be measured by outcomes. There is healing in the act of drawing close. There is peace that pours out, even when the storm still rages around you. Because prayer is more than petition, it is presence. And He promises this: when you call, He will answer. When you pray, He will hearken. He is not far off or hard to reach. He is near to all who seek Him in truth. So do not be afraid to speak your heart again. Even if it feels like you've prayed the same thing 1,000 times. Even if it feels like your voice trembles with doubt or weariness. He does not measure the worth of your prayers by eloquence or strength. He hears the longing. He sees the faith hidden within your trembling. He recognizes the hope wrapped in your words. and he responds with love. Even now, as you listen in the quiet, his Spirit moves tenderly around you. You are not speaking into emptiness. You are speaking to the one who formed you, who chose you, who delights in your voice. Yes, he delights in you. Not just in your strength, not just in your victories, but in your seeking, in your nearness, in the reaching out of your soul toward his. Prayer opens the door to communion, and communion opens the heart to rest. Let your heart rest tonight in this truth. You are heard. You are loved. You are never alone in your prayers. The God who holds the universe listens intently to you, and he will hearken, always. Jeremiah 29 verse 13, KJV. There is something sacred in the seeking, not the hurried search of the world, not the restless reaching driven by fear, but the deep soul-searching that longs to behold God, to find him not only in the miracle, but in the quiet moment, not only in the breakthrough, but in the stillness of ordinary days. The promise is clear and unwavering. When you seek him with all your heart, you will find him. Not you might, not you may, but you will. God hides not to be distant, but to be discovered. He invites the heart to draw near, not because he is far, but because he desires intimacy with you. He is not the treasure buried beyond reach. He is the treasure waiting to be uncovered by the soul that hungers for him. And oh, what beauty unfolds when your spirit begins to truly search for his presence. You begin to find him in unexpected places, in the gentle rustle of leaves, in the glow of dawn, in the whisper of grace when your heart feels weary. You begin to sense him in the silence, to feel him in the stillness, to see his hand in the details you once overlooked. Because seeking God is not a one-time pursuit. It is a daily returning, a continual drawing close. And each time you return, you find more of him, more of his peace, more of his wisdom, more of his kindness, more of his holiness that quiets every fear. And something begins to shift in you. The more you seek him, the more you desire him. The more you find him, the more you are transformed. For it is in his presence that you are most fully alive. It is in his presence that burdens are lifted. It is in his presence that joy is rekindled, even in the darkest night. Sometimes the seeking feels slow. Sometimes the heart aches in the search. Sometimes it feels like nothing is changing. But don't let the silence fool you. God is drawing you deeper. He is shaping your heart in the seeking. He is refining your trust. He is drawing out a devotion that roots you in him, beyond circumstance, beyond outcome. And one day, you'll look back and realize, it wasn't just about finding an answer. It was about finding him. And in him, you found everything you ever truly needed. So keep seeking. Keep searching with your whole heart. Not because he is hidden, but because there is always more of his love to behold. He meets the searching soul with the richness of his presence. He answers the longing with the warmth of his nearness. And when you seek him with all your heart, you will not be disappointed. You will not be left empty. You will find him, and in finding him, you will find rest. There is a quiet beauty in a heart fully yielded, a soul that lays aside every other pursuit, every lesser longing, every fleeting ambition, and whispers, "Lord, it is you I seek." There, in that sacred posture, the heavens bend low. There, in that stillness of surrender, the presence of God draws near. For he has always been close, closer than breath. But it is the heart made soft by longing that becomes most aware of him. This is the deep call of the Spirit, the gentle invitation echoing through every season of your life. Come closer, seek deeper, rest fuller. And as you seek him, not casually, not half-heartedly, but with your whole being, something sacred unfolds. You begin to see the fingerprints of his mercy on every page of your life story. Even the chapters you tried to forget. Even the ones written with tears. Even the seasons of silence where you wondered if he saw you at all. But now, through the lens of seeking, you see differently. You see how his hand steadied you when you were stumbling. You see how his grace held you when your strength gave out. You see how his love waited patiently when you strayed. And now, Now you see how all of it was leading you back to Him. Not to religion, not to ritual, but to relationship. To a place where your heart beats in rhythm with His. Where your soul finds its rest not in what you understand, but in who you trust. And beloved, there is no safer place than this. For in His plans for you, there is always hope. In His intentions, there is always goodness. In His promises, there is always fulfillment. Not always how you imagined, but always exactly what your soul needs. The path may not always be straight. There may be detours, delays, even desert places. But if your heart stays turned toward Him, if your soul keeps seeking, He will guide you through every valley and lead you to still waters. Even in the waiting, He is working. Even in the unknown, He is anchoring you in His faithfulness. So don't be discouraged if the journey feels slow. Don't let your heart grow weary if you've yet to see the answer. For the answer is not always the destination. Sometimes the answer is found in the closeness you gain along the way. You are learning to walk hand in hand with the Shepherd. You are learning to lean on His understanding, not your own. You are learning that peace isn't found in clarity. It is found in companionship with the One who never leaves your side. And oh, how deeply He loves a heart that seeks Him. He responds to the whisper of the weary. He comes close to the soul that simply says, God, I don't need all the answers, I just need you. And He answers that prayer with Himself, with His presence, with His comfort, with His unfailing love that wraps around you like a warm blanket on a cold night. So let your heart keep seeking. Let your soul keep pressing in, not because you must strive, but because He is so worthy to be pursued. And every time you seek, He is there. Every time you turn your face toward Him, His eyes are already upon you. And when your heart searches for Him with all its might, you will find Him, and He will become your portion, your peace, and your forever refuge. There is something profoundly restful about knowing that the One who holds the blueprint of your life is good, that He is not improvising your story as it unfolds. He is not reacting to the chaos, not scrambling to fix what's gone wrong, but rather, He is weaving together a masterpiece, whose glory will one day take your breath away. You may not understand all the threads just yet. You may look at certain seasons of your life and wonder, was there meaning in that pain? Was there purpose in that detour? But the Lord, in His infinite love, whispers gently, yes, beloved, even there, my hand was guiding. Even there, my plan was alive. You are not the author of your story, but you are deeply known by the One who writes it. And He writes in grace. He writes in love. He writes in redemption. There are no discarded chapters in the hands of God. There are no wasted tears, no meaningless nights, no forgotten prayers. He sees it all. He remembers it all. And He is working it all together, not just randomly, but intentionally, for your good and for His glory. When you surrendered your life to Him, you did not simply enter into religion. You entered into the arms of the Master Planner, the gentle Shepherd, the faithful Father. And He who began a good work in you will not abandon it midway. He will carry it through to completion, even when the journey takes longer than you imagined, even when your faith feels fragile, even when the path winds through unfamiliar terrain. His plan is not derailed by your weakness. His promises are not shaken by your questions. His love does not diminish when you feel lost. You may have wandered, but you have not been forsaken. You may have stumbled, but you have not been disqualified. You may have cried in silence, but heaven heard every whisper. And still He says, I know the thoughts I think toward you. What a beautiful comfort! That His thoughts toward you are not like the world's thoughts, not like the judgments of others, not like the voice of shame that tries to haunt your past. His thoughts are peace. Peace for your anxious heart. Peace for your weary soul. Peace for your uncertain future. And His thoughts are not of evil, not of destruction, not of despair, not of harm, but of hope. Yes, hope. Even when everything around you feels unsure, He offers a hope that is sure and steadfast, a hope that anchors your soul. when storms rise and shadows linger. He promises you an expected end, not a future dictated by fear, but a future shaped by grace. It may not look exactly as you imagined, but it will be beautiful. It will be whole. It will be holy. For He is faithful to fulfill every word He has spoken over you. And in the waiting, in the middle places where it's hardest to believe, He is near. He walks beside you through the valley. He lifts your chin when you're too weary to stand. He sings over you in the night, and He carries you in the shelter of His unfailing love. So rest now, dear soul, not because you see the whole picture yet, but because you know the One who does. Rest in the promise that your future is not in the hands of chance, but in the hands of your Redeemer. Rest in the truth that even when the path is hidden from view, the guide is not. He walks with you. He whispers peace to your heart. He assures you with every step, I know where I'm leading you, and I will not fail you. Let your soul exhale tonight. Let the striving quiet. Let the questions rest. You are seen. You are loved. You are held in a plan far greater than your understanding. And when you rise again in the morning, you will rise with renewed hope, not because everything is perfect, but because you belong to the One who is, and that is more than enough. Psalm 18 verses 1-2, KJV. There is a stillness that settles upon the soul when it remembers. The ground beneath is not shifting sand, but the solid rock of ages. You have walked through days that felt fragile, nights that trembled beneath the weight of sorrow, moments when all seemed uncertain. But even then, there was a foundation holding you firm. A place unmoved by storms, untouched by fear, unshaken by time. That rock was God. He who does not change. He who does not falter. He who does not crumble beneath pressure. He was your refuge, even before you called Him so. Before the winds rose, He was already your shelter. Before the battle began, He was already your fortress. Before you knew you needed a deliverer, He had already wrapped you in the shield of His strength. When David lifted this song of praise, it did not rise from a place of ease, but from a soul that had been through fire and flood, through valleys dark and deep, and still stood. And so shall you, not because your strength is great, but because your rock is unshakable. The Lord is your rock, not a distant idea, not a poetic metaphor, but a present, living, immovable reality. He is the place where you can place all your weight, your grief, your fear, your longing, your future, and you will not sink. He does not grow weary when you lean. He does not crack beneath pressure. He does not shift beneath your trembling. When all else gives way, when people fail, when resources dry up, when circumstances betray your expectations, He remains. He stands. He holds. He shelters. And not only is He your rock, He is your fortress. High and lifted, impenetrable, secure. You are not exposed in the open field of life's warfare. You are hidden in Him, tucked behind walls not made by human hands, surrounded by divine strength that cannot be broken, guarded by love that does not slumber. When the enemy advances, the fortress of the Lord shields you. When fear whispers lies, His presence rebukes it with peace. When arrows fly in the dark, His hand becomes your covering. You are not alone in the battle. You are not defenseless in the storm. You are held in the refuge of the Almighty, and no weapon formed against you shall prosper. He is not only your strength, He is your deliverer. Oh, how tender those words fall! For there have been moments you needed rescue, not just comfort. Moments when the chains were too heavy, the pit too deep, the sorrow too consuming. And He came. He came with mercy. He came with power. He came with the voice that breaks every yoke, and the hand that lifts the fallen from the dust. He came for you, not because you earned it, not because you had it all together, but because you were His, and He could not leave you where pain tried to keep you. He is your buckler, your shield. He goes before you in every place you walk. He encircles you when you feel vulnerable. He is the horn of your salvation, your strength, your dignity, your defense. When others see your life and wonder how you stood, how you endured, how you did not break, may they see it was not by your might, but by the rock beneath your feet. It was the Lord who kept you. It was the Lord who carried you. It was the Lord who gave you peace in chaos, and steadiness in the storm. He is your high tower, not only strength beneath you, but vision above you. From His tower, you are lifted higher than your fears. From His tower, you see farther than the shadows. From His tower, your perspective changes. You begin to see your life not from the valley of pain, but from the heights of promise. You are not trapped in your troubles. You are elevated by grace. So rest tonight in this truth. The ground beneath your soul is not weak. You do not stand alone. You are not left to figure it all out by yourself. You are planted on a rock that will not move. And the God who is your rock will carry you into every tomorrow, uphold you in every sorrow, and remain with you through every trial. This is not poetic hope, it is divine certainty. You are safe. You are sheltered. You are secure. Because He is your rock. And He is enough. There is something quietly powerful about knowing that you are not standing on borrowed strength. You are not drawing from an uncertain source. You are not relying on fleeting courage or temporary resolve. You are standing because your foundation is eternal. He is the rock beneath you, not just beneath your feet, but beneath your soul. In the weariness of the journey, when your legs grow tired, and the climb seems steep, He does not falter beneath you. When life's ground feels like shifting terrain, when emotions rise and fall like waves, when questions swirl like wind in the wilderness, He holds you steady. The storms may swirl around you, but they cannot shake what God Himself upholds. You may feel the tremors of life, but you will not be moved, for you are anchored to the One who does not change. You are not held by circumstance. You are held by covenant. You are not carried by happenstance. You are carried by holiness. You are not grounded in what is seen, but in what is unseen, unshakable, incorruptible, everlasting. And oh, how kind He is to keep reminding your heart. You do not have to be strong on your own. You do not have to muster your way through the battle. You do not have to pretend to be unbreakable. You do not have to hide your trembling. For He is not calling you to be your own fortress. He already is. He does not demand that you become the rock. He invites you to rest upon Him, the Rock of Ages. His arms are stronger than your burden. His wisdom is deeper than your confusion. His mercy is wider than your failings. And His love is higher than your fears could ever reach. You are not called to endure apart from Him. You are invited to abide in Him, to rest in Him, to lean fully into the strength He gives freely, to hide in the cleft of the rock, where peace cannot be stolen. The winds may howl, but in Him you are safe. The waters may rise, but in Him you are secure. The world may change, but in Him you are held steady. This is the grace of your God. Not that life will always be easy, but that His presence will always be your stronghold. Not that sorrow will never touch you, but that sorrow will never undo you, because the rock will not move. And when your hands are too tired to lift, when your heart feels faint, when you've cried prayers that felt unanswered, remember this: God is not absent in your ache. He is near, even in silence. He is strong, even in stillness. He is working, even when you do not see it. The rock does not crumble under pressure, and neither shall you, because you are hidden in Him. You may have felt surrounded, but you are also encircled by His glory. You may have felt forgotten, but you are remembered in the palm of His hand. You may have felt vulnerable, but you are covered by His unshakable refuge. What if tonight you allowed your heart to rest again? Not in answers, not in outcomes, but in the unchanging reality that God is still your rock? What if you stopped measuring your peace by your circumstances, and began anchoring your peace in His presence? What if you stepped away from the weight of trying to hold it all together, and simply collapsed into the strength of the One who already holds you? He is not asking you to be perfect. He is not waiting for you to have it all figured out. He is simply here, your fortress, your shield, your high tower. And he is not going anywhere. Let that settle your soul tonight. Let that whisper peace into the places still trembling. Let that become the song that steadies your breathing. God is your rock. When others drift, he stays. When plans fall through, he remains. When shadows stretch long, his light does not grow dim. And when your heart needs a place to rest, you will find him faithful again and again. You will not be shaken, because he will not be moved. This rock, this holy, unfailing rock, will hold you forever. There is a kind of strength that does not shout. It does not clench its fists. It does not boast or strive. It simply stands, silent, steady, sure. And this is the strength you have in your God. The rock beneath you is not loud, but it is mighty. It does not tremble with every gust of fear, nor shift beneath every weight of sorrow. It simply remains, unchanging, unmoved, eternal in its presence, constant in its power. When you lean into him, you are leaning into stability that spans generations. When you rest upon him, you are resting upon faithfulness that stretches beyond time. His word is not fragile. His promises are not fleeting. His love is not conditional. His presence is not momentary. And he has not brought you this far to leave you now. Even when you do not feel strong, even when your soul is tired and your heart unsure, he is still the rock beneath your feet. You are not adrift in chaos. You are not suspended in uncertainty. You are not walking on fragile ground. You are standing upon holy ground, sacred ground upheld by the hands of the everlasting God. And this is not a foundation you built for yourself. This is not a support you had to earn. This is a gift of grace, a divine mercy offered to you freely, a holy refuge extended to your weary heart. Even when your thoughts run wild, even when your confidence falters, even when your hands tremble, the ground beneath you does not move, because it is not your strength that upholds you, it is his. And he has not called you to walk alone. He walks beside you. But more than that, he holds you from beneath. He lifts you when you fall. He supports you when you stumble. He steadies you when you are weak. When you feel like collapsing, he becomes your strength. When you feel like drowning, he becomes your anchor. When you feel like losing your grip, he becomes your firm hold. Oh, how gently he carries you, beloved. How quietly he strengthens you. How faithfully he surrounds you. Even now, even here. And when others may not see the battle you're fighting, he sees. When others cannot hear the cries you hide within, he hears. When others cannot feel the depth of your ache, he feels it all, deeply, tenderly, compassionately. This rock is not distant and cold. This rock is warm with mercy, rich with love, alive with the heartbeat of heaven. This is not the strength of stone, it is the strength of the Savior. And he is not indifferent to your need. He is not unmoved by your tears. He is not unreachable in your struggle. He comes close, closer than breath, closer than thought. He cups your face with mercy, wraps your soul in peace, and whispers, "You are still held." Not because you've done everything right, not because you never waver, but because his covenant stands. His grace remains. His love is stronger than the storm. So breathe deep tonight. Let your soul exhale its weight. Let your mind quiet in his nearness. The rock beneath you will not break. The arms around you will not weaken. The presence beside you will not fade. And you, beloved child of God, you will not fall, because you are cradled in the strength of the Eternal One. There is a quiet miracle in knowing you are not alone. Even when no one sees, heaven watches. Even when no one understands, God knows. Even when you feel forgotten, he remembers. And not only does he remember, he upholds you. The rock beneath you is not a symbol. It is not merely metaphor. It is reality, more real than your fears, more constant than your circumstances, more present than your doubts. This rock is not passive. It is alive with purpose, alive with grace, alive with power. When the ground around you trembles, the ground beneath you holds firm. When the voices of worry rise, the whisper of God's faithfulness anchors you. His strength is not borrowed. His ability does not waver. His reliability does not expire. He does not grow weary of carrying you. He does not grow tired of hearing your prayers. He does not flinch when your heart falters. He is not merely your defender. He is your foundation. Not just the one who fights for you, but the one who holds you up from beneath. And there, in the hidden places of your life, in the spaces no one else sees, in the chambers of your soul where battles rage silently, He is already present, already holding, already sustaining. You may have been walking through heavy days. You may have been carrying burdens no one fully understands. But you are not walking on empty air. You are not carried by your own strength. You are not supported by chance. You are grounded in promise, rooted in covenant, anchored in truth. For God is not a shifting shadow. He does not change with seasons. He does not alter with moods. He is not affected by what affects you. He is constant when you are confused. He is steady when you are scattered. He is unshaken when your world feels shaken. And this, dear soul, is your hope. That even in weakness, you are not without support. Even in exhaustion, you are not without strength. Even in sorrow, you are not without a song. Because the rock beneath you sings. Yes, even now it sings. Not with volume, but with presence. Not with noise, but with assurance. A melody of mercy. A harmony of hope. A rhythm of divine security. And when you cannot sing yourself, let the rock sing over you. When you cannot pray, let His Spirit intercede for you. When you cannot stand tall, let His grace lift you. This is not a journey of self-sufficiency. This is a journey of holy dependence. Not on fleeting things, but on the unchanging strength of God. He is your rock, not just when you feel strong, but especially when you don't. He is your fortress, not only in battle, but also in stillness, in silence, in sleep. You do not have to perform to be held. You do not have to prove to be protected. You do not have to pretend to be loved. You are already secure, already surrounded, already sheltered. The rock beneath you is enough, and it will always be enough. There is something holy about surrendering to rest. Not just the rest of closing tired eyes, but the deeper rest of letting go, of releasing control, of unclenching your soul, of trusting the one who never sleeps. For beneath every breath you take, beneath every heartbeat in your chest, there is a rock that holds you steady. And this rock is not distant. This foundation is not cold. It is the warmth of a father's embrace, the strength of a shepherd's staff, the certainty of a Savior's promise. When the winds howl and the waves roar, when everything within you feels fragile, God does not merely offer a shelter beside you. He becomes the ground beneath you. You may have stumbled today. You may have spoken words you regret. You may have carried burdens heavier than your shoulders were made to bear. But even so, you have not fallen beyond His reach. The rock does not crumble beneath your weakness. The foundation does not fracture when you feel unsure. His love is not conditional. His support is not circumstantial. Even in the most hidden moments, the quiet tears, the unanswered questions, the weary prayers whispered in the dark, God remains your stronghold. You were not made to carry life alone. You were not designed to withstand storms on your own. And you don't have to. He is the strength beneath your stillness, the peace beneath your chaos, the firmness beneath your trembling. And as the night deepens and silence wraps around you, let this truth wrap you even tighter. You are held. You are anchored. You are not at the mercy of the storm. You are cradled by the mercy of your God. When your thoughts swirl like a storm-tossed sea, He calms the waters with His voice. When your heart is afraid, He steadies it with His presence. So let your soul exhale now. Let your spirit loosen its grip on what it was never meant to control. Let your mind drift into the rhythm of peace. Because beneath you, beneath every fear, every doubt, every burden, there is one who holds it all. He who laid the foundations of the earth has laid his foundation beneath your life. He who calls the stars by name knows your name. He who carved rivers through deserts can carry you through every dry place. And even now, even in this still moment, you are resting on the rock who cannot be moved. You are secure, not because of what you feel, but because of who He is. You are safe, not because of what you've done, but because of where you've been placed. In the shelter of His hand, on the strength of His promise, on the rock of your salvation. So let the night carry you gently now, wrapped in holy stillness, anchored in perfect grace. And when morning comes, you will rise again, not on shifting ground, but on the same eternal rock that never moved beneath you once. Even in the stillness of night, when no one sees, when no one hears, when your soul quietly trembles under the weight of unspoken fears, there is one who watches over you. The world may sleep, but the keeper of your life never slumbers. The maker of the mountains and the sculptor of the seas has set His steadfast love beneath your feet. You are not standing on uncertainty. You are not drifting in the tide of chance. You are resting on the rock who cannot be shaken. His word is not sand that shifts with emotion, but stone that holds firm through every season. His promises do not fade with the winds of time. They are carved into eternity, unchanging, unwavering, unshakable. He is the rock beneath your mind when it feels restless, the rock beneath your heart when it aches with longing, the rock beneath your prayers when they feel too soft to be heard. And even now, as you listen and breathe and let your soul settle, you are being held by more than sound. You are being held by presence, a divine nearness that surrounds you, a holy strength that cradles you, not because of your perfection, but because of His covenant, not because you've done everything right, but because His grace never lets go. Even when your faith feels like a flickering flame, His foundation never wavers. Even when you feel like you're slipping, His hand is already beneath you. And should the earth give way, should everything you know come undone, still, He will be the ground beneath your soul. Because He is the rock that carried David through caves, the rock that followed Israel through the wilderness, the rock that stood as refuge for every weary heart that ever cried out to Him. And He is still the rock today. Tonight, let that truth be your lullaby. Let it sing peace into your bones. Let it hush your questions and soothe the ache beneath your skin. Let it remind you that even in the darkest night, you are not alone. You are not falling. You are not forgotten. You are resting upon the eternal strength of your God. He lifts your head when you're weary. He steadies your feet when you falter. He shelters you under the shadow of His wings. And He anchors your spirit when the world around you shakes. So breathe deeply now. Breathe as one who is safe. Breathe as one who is covered by mercy. Breathe as one who is resting in everlasting arms. And as your eyes grow heavy, may your heart grow lighter. May you fall asleep in the peace that comes from knowing, no matter what tomorrow brings, no matter what storms may rise, no matter what voices whisper fear, your life rests on a rock that cannot be moved. You are not drifting. You are not abandoned. You are not fragile. You are firmly placed, eternally held, graciously anchored, and that is enough. Sleep now, beloved one. Sleep, resting not on your strength, but on the strength of the one who never fails. Sleep on the rock of ages, your refuge, your fortress, your foundation forever. Amen. In the shadow of His wings, Psalm 17 verses 6-8 and Psalm 36 verse 7, written in your exact poetic, relaxing, scripture-rooted style, with deeply comforting spiritual storytelling for nighttime peace. Beginning now with segment 1 of this 15,000-word devotional part. Scroll Psalm 17 verses 6-8, KJV. I have called upon Thee, for Thou wilt hear me, O God. Incline Thine ear unto me, and hear my speech. Shew Thy marvelous loving kindness, O thou that savest by thy right hand them which put their trust in thee from those that rise up against them. Keep me as the apple of the eye. Hide me under the shadow of thy wings. Scroll Psalm 36 verse 7, KJV. How excellent is thy loving kindness, O God! Therefore the children of men put their trust under the shadow of thy wings. There is a quiet place, a hidden sanctuary, not made with hands, not built by bricks, but woven from divine nearness. It is a place beyond the reach of chaos, beyond the storms of the world, beyond the bite of fear and the sting of sorrow. It is the shadow of his wings. This is not just a metaphor. It is a spiritual shelter, a holy covering. When David cried out, "Hide me under the shadow of thy wings," he wasn't asking for escape, he was asking for embrace. There is a difference. One flees the world. The other finds rest within it. And you, beloved soul, are invited into that same embrace tonight. You are invited to lean into the refuge of God's presence. You are invited to curl your weary heart beneath the shelter of His mercy. You are invited to rest in the fold of wings that never tire, never falter, never fail to cover those who come near. What if you could lay your burdens down, not just physically, but soul deep? What if your heart could finally exhale? Not because the troubles vanished, but because you were hidden in the shadow of the one who holds everything together. There is peace that doesn't require understanding. There is safety that doesn't depend on control. There is rest, not when everything is perfect, but when you are perfectly surrounded by the God who holds you close. And in this sacred shelter, you are not forgotten. You are not one among many. You are kept, tenderly, intentionally, purposefully, as the apple of His eye. That phrase, the apple of the eye, speaks of the deepest affection, the most guarded place, the most precious care. He watches over you with the tenderness of a father. He draws you in with the gentleness of a shepherd. He wraps His wings around you with the protective love of the Almighty. And beneath those wings, you are safe. Not just safe from danger, but safe from despair. Safe from the noise of accusation. Safe from the lies that whisper, "You are not enough." Safe from the weariness that says, "You must carry this alone." Because you don't. You are not alone. You are not unprotected. You are not unseen. Tonight, let your soul be still in the soft hush of His wings. Let your mind breathe in the peace of this holy refuge. Let your heart lean into the God whose loving kindness is not fragile or fleeting, but fierce and forever. You are not merely a passerby in His story. You are beloved. You are not forgotten in the crowd. You are cherished. You are not just surviving, you are sheltered. And this shelter, this sacred shadow, is where you are always meant to dwell. Not only in moments of crisis, but in every breath of your life. Because He is not a distant rescuer. He is a near refuge. A present help. A God who covers, cradles, and carries His own. So let your heart settle now. Let your worries lose their grip. Let your spirit sink softly into the nearness of God's wings. You do not have to try so hard. You do not have to prove your worth. You do not have to outrun fear. You only need to be still and rest in the shadow of His wings. There are moments in the quiet of the night when the weight of the day still lingers, when thoughts echo louder than they should, and memories drift like shadows across the mind. It's in these moments that the soul hungers for shelter, not of walls and ceilings, but of something eternal, something holy, something deeply, gently strong. And this is where the wings of the Almighty become more than a metaphor. They become a sanctuary, a spiritual covering, a place where the soul finally knows it is safe. Have you ever noticed how a mother bird gathers her young under her wings? She doesn't just shield them from the storm. She surrounds them with warmth. She presses them close so they can feel her heartbeat. She covers them so completely that danger must go through her first if it dares to touch them. This is the heart of your God. This is the tenderness of His presence over you. His wings are not only strong, they are tender. And beneath them, you are seen. You are not exposed to the coldness of the world. You are not left vulnerable to the arrows of the enemy. You are drawn in. You are held close. You are enveloped in mercy. He does not offer you shelter from a distance. He draws near. He wraps His nearness around you. His presence becomes your refuge. And there, under his wings, the chaos cannot reach your soul. The storm may howl outside, but within the shadow of his presence, there is peace. There is calmness, not because the world has changed, but because your heart has found its hiding place. And in this place, God begins to speak. Not always with loud declarations. Not with thunder or lightning. But with whispers. Whispers that wash over your spirit like a gentle river. Whispers that say, I am here. I have you. You are mine. Whispers that soothe the ache, hush the worry, and soften the fear. He sees every tear you never spoke of. He knows every burden you carried quietly. He remembers every sigh you released in the silence. And he does not merely observe, he covers. He shelters. He answers. As David prayed, I have called upon thee, for thou wilt hear me, O God. So you too can be assured tonight. He hears you. Even the prayers you never formed into words. Even the longing groans of your heart that only heaven could understand. Even the silent cries that no one else could perceive. He hears them all. Because his wings are not just shelter, they are intimacy. They are closeness. They are nearness. They are a sign that the Most High God stoops low to be near to those who trust in him. And he does not withhold his comfort. His loving kindness is not sparse, it is marvelous. It is rich and wide and deep. It flows freely from his heart to yours. It finds you in the dark and wraps itself around your soul like a warm mantle. And beneath the shadow of his wings, you begin to breathe again. You begin to remember who you are, not what the world says, but what he says. You are cherished. You are pursued. You are held. You are protected. And you are not alone. No matter how quiet the house may seem, no matter how distant others may feel, you are never alone when the wings of the Almighty stretch over you. Let this be your resting place tonight. Not just a thought, but a posture. Not just a poetic image, but a spiritual reality. The wings of God are your covering. And beneath them, your soul can sleep in peace. How precious is your loving kindness, O God! Pause for a moment and let that truth settle like dew upon your spirit. How precious! These are not ordinary words. They are words soaked in awe. Words that carry wonder. Because the loving kindness of God is not something you can measure. Not something you can weigh, or compare, or categorize. It is too vast. Too tender. Too holy. It is not like the fleeting affections of this world. Not like the conditional love that rises and falls with mood or moment. No. His loving kindness is steadfast. It is covenant love. It is eternal mercy wrapped in gentleness. It is the soft song of heaven that sings over your life even when you cannot hear the melody. And it is under the shadow of this loving kindness that the children of men take refuge. It's not just the strong who come, not just the righteous or the mighty. It's the weary, the wandering, the broken-hearted, the burdened, the ones who feel like they have nowhere else to turn. They come not because they deserve it. They come because they need it. And when they come, they are not turned away. They are welcomed. They are gathered. They are hidden beneath the wings of mercy. That is your God. That is the shelter he offers you tonight. You do not need to earn your way into his presence. You do not need to prove your worth to be covered by his wings. You only need to come. Come as you are. Come with the weight you've been carrying. Come with the tiredness in your bones, the ache in your heart, the quiet questions in your soul. Come with the shadows of the day still clinging to you. And let him draw you in. Let him tuck you beneath his wing, where no enemy can reach you. Where no fear can overtake you. Where no sorrow can drown you. For in his presence, there is fullness of comfort. Under his wings, there is peace that surpasses understanding. You are not hidden from God. You are hidden in God. You are not lost in the night. You are found in the light of his refuge. And he delights to keep you close. Just as a bird covers her young, not only for protection but also out of love. So your God covers you. Not only to guard you from harm, but because his heart rejoices to be near you. Because you are his beloved. Because he chose you. Because he treasures you. And his wings stretch wide over your life. Not just as a shield, but as a tender embrace. Even when the winds howl and the storm rages outside, there is a sacred stillness under his covering. Even when the world feels unpredictable and unstable, his wings do not falter. They are sure. They are faithful. They are unwavering. And beneath them, you can rest. Let this be the rhythm of your heart tonight. Not the pulse of worry, but the rhythm of trust. Not the drumbeat of anxiety, but the gentle cadence of peace. For your God has you, and He will never let you go. They feast on the abundance of your house. What a tender image! What a sacred invitation! Not merely surviving, not barely scraping by, but feasting. Not in scarcity, but in the abundance of God's house. There is a banquet spread in the presence of your soul, not because you earned your seat at the table, but because He loves to nourish you. He loves to give you what the world cannot. The world offers noise. He offers stillness. The world offers pressure. He offers peace. The world offers distraction. But He offers deep, soul-restoring presence. You were not created to run dry. You were not formed to live depleted and hurried, starving for affection, desperate for security, thirsty for peace. You were created to dwell with God, to feast in His presence, to drink from the river of His delights. Yes, that's what the psalmist declares. You give them drink from the river of your delights. Can you feel it? There is a river that flows from His heart. A river of joy that doesn't depend on your circumstances. A river of peace that flows even in the valley of tears. A river of quiet contentment that the world can never touch. And He invites you to drink deeply tonight. You do not need to ration His peace. You do not need to sip cautiously or fear that it will run dry. His river never runs out. His delights never dim. And He loves when you come thirsty, because He is never weary of pouring Himself out. In fact, He delights in your dependence. He is not annoyed by your neediness. He welcomes it. He draws near to the parched heart. He fills the longing soul. Because He is the giver of good gifts. Because He is the fountain of life. And that, dear soul, is the next phrase of the psalm. For with you is the fountain of life. Yes, not just a cup, not just a drop, not just a taste, but the very fountain. The source, the wellspring. All life flows from Him. Not just physical life, but spiritual life, emotional life, peaceful life. The kind of life that revives you from the inside out. The kind of life that whispers hope when all you've known is heaviness. The kind of life that awakens you to joy, even in the shadows. And in your light, we see light. What a radiant truth! In His light, everything becomes clear. The confusion fades. The darkness trembles. The fear loses its grip. When you are near Him, your vision changes. You begin to see what you couldn't before. You begin to understand that you were never forsaken, only momentarily unaware of His nearness. In His light, your path is illuminated. In His light, your heart is warmed. In His light, your identity is restored. You are not who the world says you are. You are not the sum of your failures or fears. You are a child of light, a beloved one covered in grace, held beneath the shadow of His wings, and guided by the gentle light of His love. So tonight, take your rest in that truth. You are safe here. There is nothing you need to earn, no performance to maintain, no approval to chase. Only this: to rest in His presence, to abide in His light, to dwell in the safety of His love. The night may be quiet, but heaven sings over you, and beneath His wings, you are held. Always. How often have you found yourself weary from the day's battles? Those quiet burdens you carry, those silent storms that stir within? And yet, there is this holy invitation again, softly echoing beneath the noise of life. Dwell in my shadow. Rest beneath my wings. Let me be your refuge. It's a sanctuary not found in a place, but in a person. Not a fleeting escape, but a steady presence. And in the shadow of His wings, you are not overlooked. You are cradled. You are not dismissed. You are drawn close. You are not merely surviving. You are securely covered, tenderly known, fully loved. Think of the mother bird again, how she shields her young. She does not wait until the danger passes to spread her wings. She covers them in the middle of the threat. She wraps herself around them even when the skies grow dark. That is the heart of your God. He is not waiting for the storm to pass to show you His goodness. He is not distant while you tremble. No, He is near. He shelters you while the winds still howl. He covers you while the thunder still rolls. And sometimes, it's not that the storm is removed, but that your soul is protected in the midst of it. That's the miracle. Not that every trouble disappears, but that your spirit is kept in perfect peace, because your eyes are fixed on Him. And there, under the shadow of His wings, you begin to breathe again, not with shallow breaths of panic, but with steady breaths of trust. You begin to release what you were never meant to carry. You begin to remember who holds you. You begin to feel the warmth of His nearness again, not just intellectually, but deeply, tenderly, spiritually. He whispers over you, "I am your refuge. I am your rest. I am your hiding place." Let that truth become your lullaby tonight. Let it sink beneath your restlessness, beneath the weariness of your thoughts. There is no safer place than the shadow of His wings. And He is not far. He is right here, closer than breath. You don't have to strive to reach Him. You don't have to perform to please Him. Just rest. Let your soul exhale in His presence. Even in the dark, He is light. Even in the silence, He speaks peace. You may not always understand the way He leads, but you are never outside His care. You may not see the full path ahead, but you are never outside His plan. His wings are wide enough to shelter every anxious thought. His love is deep enough to calm every fear. And He will never, ever stop covering you. There is something sacred about the stillness of night. When the world slows, when the lights dim and the distractions fade, your soul begins to speak. And often, it speaks from places that haven't had space to breathe all day. Places of longing, places of ache, places of wonder. But listen, even here, in this hush of night, there is a deeper voice speaking too. It's not the voice of anxiety that repeats your worries. It's not the voice of regret that replays your mistakes. It is the voice of the One who shelters you. It is the voice of your keeper. And He says, "I have not forgotten you. I have not let you go. I am covering you tonight, just as I have covered you every day of your life." You may feel small in the vastness of this world, but you are not unseen. You may feel fragile in the face of life's pressures, but you are not unprotected. For the Almighty spreads His wings over you still. And His nearness is not temporary. His mercy is not seasonal. His shelter is eternal. Even if the world shakes, His wings do not falter. Even if your heart breaks, His refuge still holds you. Even if tomorrow brings new challenges, tonight, this very moment, you are safe in His shadow. And sometimes, the greatest peace comes not from answers, but from awareness that you are held, that you are seen, that you are loved. So rest, beloved soul, not because the storm is gone, but because your God remains. Not because you have control, but because He does. Breathe in this stillness. Let your spirit soften again. Let His wings become your comfort, your canopy, your covering. You don't need to fear what's ahead, because He's already there. You don't need to carry it all, because He's already holding you. And under the shadow of His wings, you will find more than shelter. You will find peace. Peace that surpasses understanding. Peace that stills your racing thoughts. Peace that sings softly over your heart as you sleep. So lay it down now, every care, every burden. Let your soul find its quiet in His embrace. He is here. He is with you. He is covering you with love. Tonight, and always. Amen. Psalm 16 verses 8-9. I have set the Lord always before me, because He is at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad, and my whole being rejoices. My flesh also dwells secure. There are moments in life when the ground beneath us trembles. Not always in the physical sense, but in the deeper places. In the quiet chambers of the soul. In the fragile spaces of the heart. In the questions that rise in the still hours of the night. You've felt it too, haven't you? That subtle shaking when uncertainties swirl. That invisible quiver when grief visits uninvited. That quiet tremble when life's weight presses heavily. But then, there comes a whisper. A sacred reminder. I have set the Lord always before me. I shall not be shaken. Oh, how these words breathe calm into chaos. Not because storms cease at once. Not because pain evaporates instantly. But because when He is before you, when the Lord is near, your footing holds firm. Your soul finds its anchor. Like a tree planted by still waters. You are not moved by every gust of wind. Your roots run deep into His faithfulness. And even when the wind howls, you remain. Because He is at your right hand. You will not be shaken. He is not distant. Not a silent observer from afar. He is beside you, closer than breath. He walks with you through valleys. Sits with you in silence. Holds you through tears. There is something steadying about His nearness. It doesn't eliminate life's trials, but it transforms how you walk through them. Your steps are steadied by grace. Your gaze is lifted by hope. Your heart is held by peace. When others wonder how you stand, it is not your strength they see. It is His presence holding you upright. And this becomes your testimony. I have set the Lord always before me. Therefore I am not shaken. The ground may rumble, but your soul remains unmoved. The night may deepen, but your heart is lit by His light. So even now, let this truth settle into your spirit. You are not at the mercy of your emotions. You are not anchored by circumstances. You are not sustained by your own effort. You are upheld by the steady hand of your God, the one who knew your name before you were formed, the one who numbered your days before you lived a single one. He is the strength beneath your steps, and because He stands beside you, you can stand through anything. So breathe slowly tonight. Let your spirit relax beneath this gentle truth. You are not alone. You are not abandoned. And you are not shaken. Not with Him beside you. Not with Him before you. Not with His Spirit dwelling within you. You are secure. You are rooted. You are steady in Him. Psalm 16 verses 7-8. I will bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me. I have set the Lord always before me. Because He is at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. When night falls and silence settles over the earth, your thoughts often rise more clearly. The voices that filled your day quiet, but your heart still whispers its questions. Your soul still seeks direction in the hush of midnight. And in that stillness He speaks. I will bless the Lord who gives me counsel. He is the quiet counselor who needs no appointment. The gentle voice that brings wisdom when confusion tries to speak louder. The soft whisper that corrects, guides, and anchors. He is not far off. He is near, closer than your breath. You do not need to fear the shadows of the unknown, because He gives you counsel not only in daylight, but in the night too. When all feels uncertain, He remains steady. When your plans fall apart, His purpose stands. When your emotions storm, His counsel remains calm. Even as you sleep, your spirit is still being held. Even in the deep night, your heart remembers His truth. And so you can say with quiet confidence, I have set the Lord always before me. Not just once. Not just on peaceful days. Not just in the church sanctuary or the sacred moment of worship. But always. In the ordinary hours. In the anxious waiting. In the confusion. In the quiet cup of tea. In the long drive. In the unspoken weariness. Every step, set Him before you. Every breath, set Him before you. Every decision, set Him before you. He is your constant. He is your true north. He is the light by which you walk, even when the way is unclear. Because He is at my right hand, not behind you, not ahead, distant and unreachable, but at your right hand, right beside you. your helper, your advocate, your defender, your companion in the valley, your joy in the climb, your peace in the waiting. You do not walk alone. You are not left to carry the weight of your journey alone. The Lord stands beside you, and His presence steadies your every step. So even when the earth shifts, even when life rattles what you thought was secure, even when your emotions tremble and your heart aches, you shall not be shaken, not because of your own strength, but because of His nearness, not because the world is calm, but because your soul rests in the One who does not change. You may feel the tremors, yes. You may be pressed. You may be stretched. But you will not fall. Your foundation is stronger than your fear. Your shepherd is nearer than your sorrow. Your Savior is firmer than the storm. So even now, let your soul breathe in this truth. He is at your right hand. You will not be shaken. You cannot be torn from His grasp. You cannot be cast from His love. You cannot be lost from His sight. And in this sacred peace, you may lie down and rest, because He stands watch over you, your strong right hand, your firm foundation, your ever-present help in every hour. You will not be shaken. You are held. You are guided. You are safe. Amen.